Right. Defining responsibility for compliance continue according to the board. The board would be required to ensure the following: determine the structure of management of the business and the affairs of the bank, accept overall responsibility, delegate business operations to key management personnel, KMPs led by the CEO appointed by board, ensure policy making on business and risk management, oversee business and risk management, ensure prudent profit for sustainability, right? So these are the main responsibilities of the board of directors when you come to compliance point of view or overall organization transactions point of view. Having a proper people at the right time with proper delegation is a must, right? And also, unfortunately, uh, people talk about risk management, but no one is talking about identifying risk and assessing. The most two important principles are identifying, assessing, and then only you can manage. So identification is a must. So you have to have a strong team to identify your risk and assess whether it's high, medium, or low. Then you have the proper system, managing system. Defining responsibility for compliance. Continue. The compliance department is responsible for identification of compliance risk, implementation of controls, and monitoring of those controls. In doing so, the compliance would involve themselves in the following key stages: identification of risk, qualifying and evaluating risk, implementing controls, monitoring and assurance, escalation reporting, resolution and regular reviews. I think as a compliance department, what is more important, you need to maintain a good relationship with the business. That doesn't mean that you don't have to maintain a relationship because you are compliance. But compliance should not wear the hat of business. Right? While ensuring a good relationship, they have to ensure that all controls are in place. Right? Now, what I see with my past experience, I have seen in certain instances, customers, they're very smart. Sometimes they come and ask, okay, tell us the places where countries which have less money laundering rules and regulations. I want to send this TT. Or sometimes the customer will ask, okay, I want to avoid this transaction get recorded at the FIU because it's above 1 million. Can I open this LC or this transaction through my spouse? So it's very clear that they are trying to hide these certain transactions from their which will get recorded in under their name. So customers are asking from the business. So what more important, sometimes you might lose businesses, but that doesn't mean that you have to encourage customers to do wrong activities, non-compliance activities, right? Now, especially when you come to compliance functions, always the customer, if the customer has given a profile, the customer transactions and his income should be in line with the profile of the customer. That's the basic thing. That's why that comes from the KYC principle. Now, if I'm a PN in an organization, right? So my salary will be 15,000, and I will get some OT, another around 7,500 or 10,000. So nothing more than that. So all these will go to my account. Now all of a sudden, if you realize, okay, I'm getting 100,000, 50,000, 25,000 frequently, so which that is not in line with the customer profile. So understanding the profile, in order to understand the profile of the customer is and put in the required rules and regulations is the responsibility of the compliance function as well. So business as business, you all also must understand that you need to give the required support to your compliance team as well. So if you see, you are the first defense line, compliance and risk the second defense, internal audit third, external audit fourth, central bank is fifth. So, but still, in certain instances, though you have 5 defense line or the 4 defense line, the 5th defense line will charge a penalty. So it clearly shows that the mechanism, there is some problem in the mechanism, or the bank is too much driving on the business requirement. I'm not going to say the business is not important. We all get, rest of the employees in the organization, people who are in the back office, get the salaries out of business earns. You are the people who earn money. We don't earn, right? That doesn't mean that we should block your business. We should support you. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you can do what you want, because there is a set of rules and regulations given by the authorities. And while performing your duties, you have to ensure that you comply those rules and regulations as well, right? Any questions up to this point? Yes? Yes? Any questions? Hello? Any questions? No? Right. As bankers, I think that this is a topic that you will definitely have a lot of questions. So I don't think that no one can say that we don't have questions on this. Fine. Right. Defining responsibility for compliance, continue. Thereafter, each business line has to take the responsibility towards carrying out their business in accordance with the bank's compliance policy system. Beyond that, each employee would individually be responsible for complying with the controls that have been put in place. In order to ensure that the above defined responsibilities are duly taken care of, Board of Directors would rely on the compliance officer. So the point is where you have to do business according to your size. There are big giant two banks, state banks, then you have the systemically important banks, then you have other large banks, there have small banks. So if you are a big bank, you should not do what the small banks are doing, right? Since you are a small bank, you can't do what the big banks are doing. So central bank always say that if you are a big bank, you should not have small things in your system. You can have violations, but they don't expect the small type of violations from a system established organization. So that is why in certain instances they highlight and they say this is something that you should not include in your organization system, right? Benefits from proper compliance, avoid losses, penalties. So money laundering is classic example. If there's a money laundering, normally, if I'm not mistaken, now for an example, for first violation, if it is 10,000, similar same violation, it will be double, 20,000. Next time, it will be double, 40,000. 40,000 will get double if I'm not, there's a mechanism. Or yes, so there is a huge penalty imposed on the structure from the structure itself, right? And there were instances where the banks were penalized, fined for not having proper KYC. KYC is a very important concern. Without knowing the KYC, how can you deal with customers? Right? You can't deal with customers if you don't know proper KYC. So there's a question whether our KYC is up to date. Right? There's a question whether our KYCs, bank KYCs is up to date. Because sometimes the customer might have opened the account in 2010. Today, 11 years gone, still you have the same old KYC form. So what is the mechanism that you have to say that, can you say that your KYC is updated? Up to 2010, it's updated, but most of the people, they have changed their basic information, their status, their job, their mobile address, their residence, right? So 11 years means so many things can happen in an individual career. So we have the old number, but we don't have the current number. We have the old address, we don't have the current address. So that doesn't mean that your KYC is up to date. Most of the, and that is the biggest issue. When you give the KYC form, customers, they don't fill. I have seen HSBC. Normally, they are they have a very comprehensive questionnaire, not like the local banks. So I don't know how many of their customers are filling that form and returning back to them. It's a very comprehensive, very detailed document, but I doubt whether they are getting anyone representing from HSBC. Anyone is there from HSBC or a foreign bank? Yes. Anyone is here from a foreign bank? No one? Right. So just check with them. Most probably, I don't think they are getting 10, less than 25%. Right. So finally, it's a hard job in Sri Lankan context. Why has become hard job? It's the most simple job that we can do, but we need to get the authorities support. We need to get the government support. If not, we can do. Very simple thing. They have to automate all this NIC department or link NIC, birth department, police station, tax department, airport, right? So when you connect all these together with a unique form, it's KYC. So wherever you go, once you type your NIC, you will get all the details. That's, if you go to Australia, they have an identification number. Once you type the identification, all assets, liabilities, everything will be there. All your penalties will come to your account. We have to pay. India, they started digitalization. It's a 5-year process for them, but they have started. But we have limited number of people, but still the authorities are not pushing for that. Maybe that they are not pushing for that because when you do that kind of a thing, you can't have 2-3 passports. You can't have 2-3 NICs because there is only one identification detail. Right? Then you can't show different documents to different authorities. So then your high level of transparency is the problem, biggest problem. Otherwise, it doesn't mean that we can't implement in Sri Lankan context. We can do it, but the authorities are not so willing to do that. Or the people who are in the parliament, they are willing to do that. The reason may be that then it will become too much transparent when you come to transaction and transaction point of view, right? Then legal protection for employees, the bank, it's a legal protection, right? When you are compliant, you don't have to worry. The job is secured, unsecured. If you are working for an organization where high level of compliance is there, enhance business opportunities. People will prefer to deal with such a company. Preserve our integrity, goodwill, organization integrity, goodwill will be preserved, and people will prefer to deal with them, such organization. Enhance reputation of the bank. It will enhance the reputation of your organization, bank, which will add a lot of value for them. Then even when we want to maintain relationship with our friends, always we want to maintain a good relationship with good friends, right? With who has qualities, who have whom you can trust, whom you can respect, whom you will who is going to assist you, right? So more integrity, we prefer to deal with more people with integrity, right? So therefore, from a customer's perspective, customers also prefer to deal with people who with high integrity uh, in the banking business as well. Any questions? Yes? No. Why compliance for banks? Financial institutions accept public deposits and lend such deposits as core banking business with a margin which is called a profit. You accept deposit and you lend. You maintain a margin. So now the margin has come down. You're not taking deposits because you can't lend. And now the banking business is not functioning well, right? But still the processes should move. Today, majority of the banks are much more focusing on recovery, right, than business. So sometimes your recovery, if you have a effective recovery process, but unfortunately, you will get a lot of money. But still, once you recover, there is no way of lending because there is no opportunity for you to lend. In addition, financial institutions accept public investments by issuing shares at a free cost, accept deposit issue debentures, and borrow money from overseas at a fixed cost and use such money for lend expansion. So normally issuing shares we consider as free of cost, but theoretically though it's the case, today shareholders also expect a good return from the financial institution or from the companies. Today you can't say we don't have profits, we are not going to pay any dividend, right? They expect. Otherwise they will sell the shares and they will move out. So when if you can't maintain a good level of demand and supply, it will affect your share, and at the same time it will affect your collapse as well, right? So at the same time banks will borrow from other financial institution, or sometimes the banks borrow from through debentures, issuing debentures, long-term 5-year debentures, and they get money in order to invest, or in order to lend to the customers and earn a profit. So the point is, where we are lucky, we are in a sector where still the things are moving, right? But economic conditions might change in time to come with this COVID. But you need to maintain high level of compliance, governance, and risk within the organization, right? If you want to survive in the long run, you need to ensure that you maintain high level of GRC principles within the organization. And financial institution 100% runs its business by utilizing public money. You are in a company where you take 100% public money. Either the depositors' money, either the shareholders' money, right? It's public money, right? So you don't bring your money into the organization. So when you are depending on other people's money, you have to maintain high level of uh, uh, integrity within the organization, right? Therefore, it is of paramount importance that the bankers, as one of the important financial institutions, to carry on their business of banking with utmost trust, with adherence to good behavioral practices, and maintain high standard of GRC in order to win the confidence of stakeholders. Hence, confidence is the key to sound banking system. So if I'm not confident with your systems and the processes and your way of handling things, I will not come to your bank, because there are a lot of banks in the system. Why do I have to come to you when I'm not confident with your processes? So the processes is something to do with governance, risk, and compliance. If you're not transparent in your activities, I will not come and maintain your account with your bank. So whatever said and done, economic conditions will change. When the problem is over, we have to be ready, and we have to ensure all GRC principles are in place. So this is the time for all the banks to focus more on GRC principles and ensure that they build, or they establish all basic requirements uh, within the organization. Right. Any questions? Yes. Kaushalya, any questions?
No,
Kaushalya?
sir. No, sir.
Anyone who is working for compliance or risk department? Yes. No? Anyone working for? So all of you are from the business. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask questions.
I'm from risk management.
Yeah. You're into credit risk or operational risk?
Market risk.
Market risk. Okay. So I think you know better than all of us how the market is behaving today, right? So yeah, so the market risk is very important for organization. Unfortunately, it's very unpredictable. The market risk today, we don't know what's really happening. Uh, New rules and regulations are coming, governors are changing. Now, when we move in this form, sometimes it will be very difficult for you to understand where to start and where to end. So all of us, but still, we need to ensure that we maintain a high level of um, risk controls within the organization. I think there is another when you since you are aligned to since you are into Nuane in the risk point. Sorry, which bank you are working for? Nuane, you are working for which bank?
NSB.
Right. Okay. Right. So, if possible, just try to see whether you all are checking the outsource agreements, outsourcing risk of outsourcing, because the companies might close. Sometimes your systems are depending on outsource functions, right? So if you are not focused on that, just focus on that as well, because all of a sudden you all are heavily depending on certain outsource functions. At the same time, some of your systems may be outsourced. Now, what happens if those companies are going to close down, right? Sometimes it may be a small company or it can be a big company as well, but sometimes they might close down the business. So then, who is going to take over your function is a question. So please make sure that you need to focus on that as well, because if you are heavily depending on this outsourced functions, now there can be now printing. Yes, if you don't have if one company is not doing, you can give it to another company. That's not a problem. But if your systems are with an outsourced companies or firms, sometimes there can be problems. So just focus on that aspect as well. Have not seen much banks are focusing on that aspect. Okay. Any questions? No. Your assignment submission date is over. Yes. Your assignment submission is over.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. Um, Compliance focus. KYC CDD. I will explain what are those principles, policies and procedures. Know your customer due diligence, policies and procedures. So organization must have proper policies and procedures within the organization. Then customer screening, ensuring that you have a proper system within the organization for customer screening is an important thing. An audit, an effective audit, risk-based approach. Most of the identification of customers or the charges will be based on risk-based approach. So if the risk is high, you have to have proper controls. If the risk is minimum, sometimes you can live with that. So now the regulator is also visiting your banks based on the risk. If they feel that this bank is high risk, sometimes they might come twice a year. If they feel, okay, this bank's risk is minimum, sometimes they might come uh, uh, year after year, or sometimes they will come after 3 years or 2 years time. So now the risk-based approach is there. As a result, we have to ensure, we have to identify which are more high risk and which are less risk and which are medium. So based on that, we have to ensure that our approaches, processes are in place. Future compliance is more than just following rules. Now, one classic example, banking, they wanted to bring the Banking Act in 2020, actually this year, early this year, right? But because of this pandemic, they couldn't do that. Now, I can remember at that time uh, the director bank supervision, he stated that currently we are banking as a central bank, but we can't buy two. But when the new banking act comes, we are going to buy two. So today, when the central bank comes, they go through and they highlight your weaknesses and they seek the management views and they request you to rectify. But with the new banking act, first, when they see something has gone wrong, right, they will first give you the charge sheet and request you to pay that. And after that, you will have to rectify those as well. So there's a huge challenge, right? Not just rectifying, you will have to pay the penalties as well first. So spot penalty type of things might come with the Banking Act. And so sometimes it might be where you have to pay from your salary as well. So all of you all must be very careful. Now, due to your negligence, if something happened and if the loss is 50 million, how many years that you have to pay 50 million? Divide that from your salary and see how many years you will have to pay that amount. Sometimes maybe beyond your retirement, right? So future governance compliance or future requirements are very challenging. Regulators and governments are issuing newer regulations to avoid future crises and cracking the whip down on banking organizations that do not conform. As a result, the average business today is confronted with the excess of cross-industry regulations, each consisting of hundreds of requirements and rules. Dealing with these requirements in a traditional manner is no longer cost-effective or efficient. It requires a renewed business model that analyzes compliance requirements, prioritizes their importance to the business, applies the appropriate control, and monitor the system consistently. Right? So it's not going to be easy, right? So you have to have proper system within the organization to ensure future crises as well, right? And with the Banking Act, most probably next year we can expect that, right? Next year definitely we can expect the new Banking Act. So fulfilling the requirements which are there in the Banking Act will be a must. If not, they will impose high penalties to the bankers. Regulator has a major role to play in ensuring that banks are well managed and governed properly without solely depending on the market pressure and self-discipline to the practice by banks. Now, from the regulator's point of view, regulator also has a huge responsibility. Regulator can't just pass the ball to the bank and say, okay, you have not done, right? And also another problem now, when most of these rules and regulations are imposed on the bank, sometimes the instructions are not clear. When the instructions are not clear, you don't know what to do and what not to do. then what happens, right? Sometimes people try to misinterpret and they will do what they want. So there has to be clear rules and regulations issued by the authorities. But central bank or any regulatory authority can't issue rules for each and every bank. So what they say, we are issuing the rules and regulations in a general mode, right? You have to decide what is based on your size, what suits your organization, what is required by your organization. We can't decide on that. Now, any rule set of rules and regulations which are applicable for a giant state bank, we can't expect from a small bank, right? Because these are two sizes. So it's not fair for the regulator to lay down a set of principles, and at the same time it's not fair for the small bank to comply at high level, because since they can't do that, because compliance is a cost. If you can have a lot of committees, subcommittees, board subcommittees, management committees, all these are cost, right? So as a result, the regulator says, no, we will give you the rule, you define what requires for your organization and ensure that you um, drive the show. On the other hand, a failure of one bank can trigger a series of failures in other banks due to the uh, contingent effect. Thus, regulators would not allow bank to fail since it directly affects the country's economy. So it's just there's a contingent effect. When one bank is going to crash, the other banks will also crash. That's what I told you at the beginning. When you see a penalty for a bank, others will have to be very careful. They can't enjoy that. It's nothing to enjoy at all, right? Because it's something dangerous for all of us, right? So therefore, uh, one bank will affect the other bank within a short period, and as a result, the entire banking sector might collapse. So therefore, the regulator will have a huge responsibility. They will not allow a bank to crash, but that doesn't mean that they can, if two, three banks have similar issues within a short period, they also can't look after you. They have a set of problems. They will not be able to look your problems and find solutions for you. Now, these are some penalties and charges. Section 19 of the Financial Transaction Reporting Act. I think this slide should have gone down. I will take this slide in a later stage. Right. Any questions up to this point? Sorry, this slide should go down. Unfortunately, it has come here. Any questions? Yes, any questions? Are you all sleeping? Yes. Now, can each of you all must tell something with some points with regard to your not the organization generally, but how do you look at compliance function? Udesha, how do you look at these compliance functions? How it relates to you?
Compliance is we have to adhere what central banks says, like the regulations, and like even
You are attached to which division? Yeah.
operations.
So operations means you are directly linked with this function, no? Business.
Yes.
You are the people who should give instructions, no?
Yeah, operations related, all the documents should be according to the compliance. The like what I do is granting loans, so each the document should be according to the compliance, like to minimize the risk of operations.
Yes. So you're directly involved in the first defense line. Pushpa Kumara, what is your view on that? Pushpa Kumara? Pushpa Kumara is silent. Sampath, what's your view on that?
I think compliance is important to practice, but the thing is, it is difficult to practice sometimes.
Why? What type of things difficult to practice? Can you
Uh,
just tell me one or two instances?
for example, KYC, continuous due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
So practicing is not very easy because time to time, since the customer details are changes, we have to update them, but there is no proper system to update that sometimes. And sometimes different banks practice different practices,
Yeah.
so this leads to some confusion with regard to compliance.
Yeah, the point is where I said that's what I told you. The big banks they don't have to do what the small banks are doing, right? So sometimes the customers might come and say, okay, this bank is doing that. Just see what's the size of the bank. If a bank in your size is doing that, yes, then you need to maintain your standards and your organization policies. Now, if X bank is the smallest bank in the country, and if you are the largest bank, you don't have to do what the X bank is tolerating or accommodating, which you can't do that, right? So therefore, you have to decide what you're going to do, because I know customers sometimes once there was a complaint, not a complaint actually, he has gone to one of our Colombo region banks branches, and he has told out of one of the biggest private banks, out of the among the first three banks, one bank's board of directors have taken a decision to not to give instruct information to uh, tax department, right? They have taken a decision. The customer is telling that X bank, one of the largest private banks, board of directors have taken a decision not to give customer information to tax department, right? Now just see that cannot happen at all. Now the bank of board of directors in the banking sector are very careful. Whether it's a big bank or a small bank, they're very careful. So just see how these customers are interpreting, right? And he was saying big this big bank, their board of directors have taken a decision. Your bank people, they always give information to the tax department. So I told that cannot happen definitely, right? Customers are creating issues, they're creating stories, I would say, and let them go to that particular bank. So if that bank is doing that, why are they coming behind us? That's a very simple question, no? If X bank is doing without those documents, why are they coming behind you? They can go to straight away that bank. That seems to be, if he knows about that bank's transfer requirements, he is dealing with that bank as well, right? Then I request that branch manager to check whether he maintains an account with them. He maintains account. Then we check whether from that bank, what is their process with regard to this giving information to tax department. They told no. When the instructions comes, straight away they inform, they give the required information to the tax department. They don't have any process of deviating from that. Simply they can't have, right? But these customers, sometimes they might come and say, look here, that bank is not taking, you are the only bank who is taking. So let them go to that particular bank and get things done. Why are they coming behind you? Because they know that you are flexible, and there is a chance that they will be able to get those things from you as well. That is why they are coming behind you. So be careful. Don't be a victim, because the point is where if something goes wrong, uh, there'll be high penalties for your organization, which will affect you as well. Right? If you have seen instances where when things goes wrong, It can be operational or it can be a closed department function. Finally, the audit will come and ask questions from you. So I know most of the banks should not have.
So your line is not clear, sir.
Is it clear now? Hello.
Yeah, now okay.
Okay, right. Thank you. Right. Right. So you have to write audit explanation. But majority of the banks, they fall into trouble because they go beyond their limits and they try to give services to the service to customer. So business view is that we want to give the best service. As a result, sometimes they might deviate from the rules and regulations, right? Yes. Kaushalya, what is your view with regard to the compliance? Importance of compliance? Kaushalya? Kaushalya, are you there?
So actually, compliance is important to minimize our risk.
Yeah.
Um,
How you are using compliance into your day-to-day work? Yes.
Most of the time, actually, so try to follow their rules. But sometimes we got some difficult.
සමහරලාට කරන්න බෑනේ ඔය compliance එකෙන් කියන ඒවානේ.
Uh,
operations වලින් issue කරන rules fulfill කරන්න බෑනේ. ඒකනේ කියන්නේනේ.
ඇත්තටම මේ කස්ටමර් රික්වයර් කරන මේ කස්ටමර් රික්වෙස්ට් කරන සමහරවිට ඉතින් ෆන්ඩ් ට්‍රාන්ස්ෆර් කරන්න අන්න එසර් කිව්වා වගේම වෙන කෙනෙක්ගේ නමකට ඉතින් ඒ වෙලාවට ඊට පස්සේ කම්ප්ලයන්ස් එකෙන් කෝල් කරලා අහනවා why do you doing like this such a
Yeah.
things otherwise we lost the customers sometimes
No, let the list customer go. Don't worry. He is not a loyal customer for your organization. Only loyal customers. Keep the loyal customers with you, right? Because the point is where if something goes wrong, finally penalty to your bank. It's a reputational damage, and finally you will have to pay for that as well. So be careful. Anything unknown transactions, don't encourage. Right? That's important. Right. David, what's your view on that? Compliance related?
Yeah, I think it's a very important element in terms of banking. So
Yeah.
from the at the point of onboarding the customer and also in doing time to time triggers where we do CDD and EDD, I think it's a very important thing to know your customer better in order to do banking with them.
Right. Sandhya, what's your view? Sandhya?
Yes, compliant decision is directly and enforcing the relevant law within the banks and day-to-day legal instructions enacted by the central bank and the operating requirements and creating local culture with the other divisions of the banks.
So how do you exercise your compliance function?
Um,
You're attached to which division?
regulation policies in every divisions.
Yeah, which division you are attached to? මොකක්ද division
Legal,
එක?
legal division, sir.
Legal, you are a lawyer.
Yes, sir.
You are attached to which bank?
HDFC Bank, sir.
Right. So we are more into execution of mortgages.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So as lawyers, yes, your role will be much more higher than a non-lawyer, right?
Yes,
So you
sir.
have to ensure.
Actually, I like to think beyond the law, sir.
Definitely. That doesn't mean beyond the law means that doesn't mean that you can.
Collecting
Uh,
another information regarding within the bank's operation risks and credit. Uh, that's a mixture. I get to know, not sounds, actually get some fair knowledge for
okay.
that.
Okay. Right. Right. Sean, what is your view on that? Sean?
Actually, it's one of the most important element in banking sector. Uh, Mainly compliance is we are the banks how the bank do it business in accordance with the rules and restrictions and the guidance given by the central bank.
Okay. Do
I'm
you
attached
follow
to,
the rules and regulations when you are
yes,
doing your function?
yes, I'm attached to the credit department.
Okay.
Mainly, we should analyze the requirement of the customer is in line with the regulations of the bank,
Okay.
and we should extract the true figures and true details of the customer uh, in analyzing a credit appraisal.
Right. Right. Okay. Thanks. Taranga, what's your view?
Yes,
Sandhya, can you off your mic, please? Mute your
Sure, sir.
mic. Yeah. Yes. Yes, Taranga.
yes, Compliance Act is a very important bank industry. Then, we engage rules and regulation and not accepting the violation of violation.
Okay. Okay. Right. Udesha, what's your view? Desha Kannangara.
Sir, I already have then having
Sorry,
documentation.
your line is disturbing me. Okay.
So dude, now okay, no, sir?
Now, okay. Seems to be okay.
Okay. Like during documentation, like now I'm attached to the operations section. So what we do is we go like for loans and all, we have to get the compliance of the documents. Even in the corporate sector, like corporate, if the corporate documents come for granting a loan, we have to check that the documents are according to the compliance of the regulations and the forms and all before granting a loan, and the customers borrowing limits, all we have to check according to the compliance.
Right. Okay. Okay. Shad, what's your view?
Yes, sir. Compliance is doing the things correctly, and then also, sir, I believe that okay to do that properly. I think the right people should be in that place.
Yes, definitely. The people with an interest should be there in place in those units. Otherwise, you will not be able to get the what's really required.
Expected outcome. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Anyone I missed? Chaturanga, did you say anything about your views on compliance? No. Did I miss anyone? Right. Okay. Now, banker secrecy is also another important aspect where bankers you maintain relationship with outsiders, you outsource banking functions, and when you are maintaining high level of uh, concerns, when you are outsourcing your functions, be careful. There can be instances where your customer information might move out and which will create certain issues. So because your not only the directors, the officers who take the responsibility will be responsible for that. Therefore, you have to ensure that you have the required controls or the required within the organization. There may be that you all are getting outsourced companies to do your call center activities, but make sure that when they are dealing with customers, actually when they are inside the office, they should not even use their phones, right? You can get a detailed customer printout or take a photograph and public that in host in a website or just post it in the Facebook, right? Now just imagine that kind of a situation, the risk. They can get hold of a high net worth customer, and why with the summary with the name, NIC, account number, and the account balance. You can get all this information in one screenshot, and he or she can post it on the Facebook. So then what will happen? Everyone will see from which organization it went, but if it can be from your bank. So be careful when you are hiring people. You have to put required rules and regulations and controls. Don't allow them to use the phones within the premises, right? They can take those information out and they can publish. So I think the biggest challenge what we see when you come to secrecy is not from the internal employees, from the external people. Sometimes the parties might come and do development for your systems. Outsiders, they put a memory stick and get all the information. Right? So there's a huge challenge, huge challenge that is there among all the banks. Not it's a unique problem for all, only one bank. It's a problem, unique problem for all the banks. Sometimes they might mix this information, your bank information, sometimes with our bank information with your bank. So it's going to be a huge damage for the people in that organization, because they are using that information, right? And they are publishing. So they can just host or they just email it. So finally, your organization, they are not responsible if you don't have, for an example, just a school leaver taking this information, your number one customer's details, and if they post it on the Facebook, can you recover the reputational damage where the customer is going to charge from you, from that school leaver? Your bank will have to bear the loss. So you'll have to be very careful even if you are using this outsourced people for developments, or it can be for any customer communications, right? There's a huge risk. Right. Now, it's 2:46. Right. Now it's 2:46. We'll join at 3:15. And at the beginning, I will show you some video clips on money laundering. And then I will go to the theories and we'll discuss and finish it. Right? Any questions up to now? Right. So please come back in 3:15. I will show you some video clips which are relevant for you all to understand the gravity of this money laundering, and then I will explain the theories which are relevant for this topic. Okay then, thank you. Hello, hello. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you see a video screen? Just tell me whether you can see that.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. This is a money laundering. What happened in PNP Baribas. Just listen to that. I will go into theory later. First, I will show you the video clips. Just see what happened there. Can you can you all hear also? Can you all hear sounds?
€5 billion fine for US sanctions violations and enabling the activities of terrorists and human rights abusers in Sudan and other countries. Regulators in the United States also banned it from carrying out certain US dollar transactions for a year.
This outcome should send a strong message to any institution anywhere in the world that does business in the United States, that illegal conduct will simply not be tolerated. And wherever it is uncovered, it will be punished to the fullest extent of the law.
BNP took steps to evade sanctions against Sudan, Iran, and Cuba between 2004 and 2012. The bank's general counsel, Georges Durand, appeared in New York State Court to plead guilty to falsifying business records and conspiracy. The court found that BNP essentially functioned as the central bank of Sudan, concealed its tracks, and refused to cooperate when it was first contacted by US authorities. BNP CEO has said the US settlement won't impact retail clients and its pricing policy will remain unchanged.
Drug lords. Terrorists and rogue nations were just some of the groups that moved money through. Drug lords, terrorists, and rogue nations were just some of the groups that moved money through HSBC, according to a year-long investigation by the US government. Clients from Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Russia used the bank to move billions of dollars from illegal operations around the financial system. Their report alleges that the Mexican affiliate bank transported $7 billion to HSBC in the US, more than any other Mexican bank. They had not considered that to be suspicious. Circumvented US safeguards designed to block transactions involving terrorist drug lords and rogue states. It also provided US dollars and banking services to some banks in Saudi Arabia, despite their links to terrorist financing. The US Senate also said HSBC regularly bypassed restrictions on dealing with Iran, North Korea, and other states subject to US sanctions. The bank has admitted to having poor money laundering controls and apologized.
We deeply regret and apologise for the fact that HSBC did not live up to our own expectations, the expectations of our regulators, our customers, our employees, and the general public.
HSBC had expected a fine, but not of $1.9 billion, the biggest in banking history. But the bank has avoided any criminal prosecution, which could have stopped HSBC from operating in the US altogether. Analysts say the fine will act as a wake-up call, not just for banks.
This also has significant importance for every single organisation around the world that is doing business through local agents, not just banks. And we've had instances of this in Asia. If your local agents are not complying, one, with local law, and two, potentially with US law, you may be held liable at some point in the future, and that should worry people.
HSBC is not the first bank to get on the wrong side of regulators in recent months. The record fine is a warning to others to get their operations in order, and quickly. Charlie Angela, Al Jazeera, London.
Right, that's about HSBC. I hope that you all can see and you can hear as well the videos. Hello. Can you all hear and see the videos?
Yes, I can see, but can you increase some volume? Then I can hear.
Volume.
Okay.
One minute. It's the maximum volume here. Let's see here. No, it's maximum. Buddha. Right. This is
So
something
if
to
you
do.
can share the links, then we can go through the videos, sir.
Okay. You all can't hear at all?
Yes, it's not audible, sir.
Okay. Just see this one.
According to people familiar with the probe, U.S. authorities are investigating London-based Standard Chartered plc for potential U.S. sanctions violations connected to its banking for Iranian-controlled entities in Dubai. The latest investigation involving the bank is based in part from evidence that emerged during a separate probe of BNP Paribas, the French bank that pleaded guilty this summer to charges related to sanctions busting and agreed to pay $8.9 billion in penalties. During the course of the BNP case, U.S. federal and state investigators received evidence the French bank had done business with a Dubai-registered corporation that was a front for an Iranian entity, one source said. Investigators also learned that the company used to have an account with Standard Chartered. Such an account would have been covered by U.S. sanctions laws that ban dealings with Iran because activity in the account involved U.S. dollar transactions.
It was the same initially. This video as well. Yes. Can someone tell me? Is it the same? You all can't hear?
Yes, sir.
Is it a common problem for all or only for a few? What about the others? Sandhyani, still you have the problem?
Yes, sir. Can't hear properly, sir.
You can't hear at all.
Slightly, sir.
Okay, just check this particular video. This is on Wells Fargo.
We know that money doesn't grow on trees, but Wells Fargo customers have found that bank accounts do appear out of nowhere. It's a bank.
Can you hear that well? No.
No, sir. No.
Okay, then no point. You can see the video now, but you can't hear, no? I will see.
We know that money doesn't grow on trees, but Wells Fargo customers have found that
Is it the same?
do appear out of nowhere. It's a bank, right? They're supposed to keep track of people's money, savings.
Can't you hear?
Welcome to Watch Mojo News.
Yes, sir. It's the same, but okay. Can someone hear? You play.
Not clear.
Yeah, can see the video, but the sound is not clear.
Sound is not okay.
Yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, now here you saw HSBC, they had to pay $1.8 billion, dollars, 1.8 billion. Yesterday, I heard that Central Banks of Sri Lanka informing that they have $5 billion in their control. Now just you can see the amount of the penalty and what are the reserves of Sri Lankan Central Bank. 1.8 billion penalty and we have only 5 billion reserves, right? So now what we have to understand is, now if you take, this is US, when you come to, even US laws are very strong. They have all the controls, everything is in place. But when you come to money laundering, people somehow they push their transactions and finally the banks are affected out of that. So this is the biggest problem. So if US is having this kind of problems, what about our country, right? They have very strong laws. They have very high level regulatory punishments, but still the violations take place and the penalties are very high. 1.8 billion. It's not a small amount, right? So the message what we have to get, not because we have to be happy because it happened to HSBC or Standard Chartered or nothing. The message what we have to get is that it's common everywhere, right? While having such a stringent set of rules and regulations, if US banks are affected out of that, what about the Asian region and our country? So it can happen to your bank and my bank or any bank. So that is why the compliance requirement, money laundering controls are important. Now in time to come, definitely 20% of our profits in future, we will have to leave for penalties. 20% of your profit means, what are our profits? Bank's profit. Multiply 8.8 billion into 200 rupees and see how many billions. 200, 160. 360 billion rupees, right? Just in 200 into 200, right? 360 billion rupees, just single penalty. If you add all our banking sector, entire banking sector profits, I don't think half, it will be just half of that. So you can see the size of the penalty and the size of the damage that happened to that particular bank. They can afford because they are big banks, right? If just imagine if your bank is going to get a penalty of 1 billion, can you afford that? So this is why that we have to be very careful when you come to money laundering and the charges, right? Now we see what is money laundering and how it happens. I know most of these basic points are not relevant. What is money laundering? Now what normally happens here, people earn a lot of black money through drugs, through weapons, through methods that they can, through selling illegal transactions, right? So they can't account these transactions in your normal day-to-day activities. Now, if you are selling your property and if you are getting 5 million, you can take that check and deposit, pay order and deposit that in your account. But if you are selling drugs for 5 million, and can you go and deposit that 5 million in your account? You can tell initially, okay, it's a land transaction. I sold my land because definitely the banker will ask from you, how do you got this money? First, you can say, okay, it's a land transaction. Second time, you can say, I sold my vehicle. Third time, what are you going to say? There's a limitation, there's a restriction that you can't keep on continuing the same old story. So then what happens there, right? There has to be a mechanism of converting this black money into white. So there are all unethical, illegal businesses. They get a lot of black money. So then they somehow try to use this banking sector, banking process or financial sector process to convert this black money into white money. I can remember there was one particular, I was when I was at the head of compliance, there was a transaction in 2019, oh, sorry, 18. Chinese party, they want, they have brought money in gunnyaks, 50 million rupees in bags. Bags in the sense this, not the normal bags, in a gunny bag, and they wanted to deposit this money in the bank. So our instructions were not to take that money because we don't know any transaction. We don't know the parties and they are Chinese people. So it can be a money laundering transaction. It can be genuine transaction as well. So there was no adequate information for us. There was another transaction where there's a property sell. The transaction was took place in Anuradhapura, and the amount of the transaction was 100 million, and the seller is in Colombo, and the buyer, the customer, our customer is in Colombo. The transaction take place in Anuradhapura, and they are reluctant to give the copy of the transfer deed. It's 100 million in cash, right? And the parties are reluctant to give a copy of the deed. So we straight away said, don't take it. Now, when you are taking 100 million in cash, how can you accept 100 million in cash without having a justification for that? So they were telling, okay, there is a land in the city and they are going to sell it. And this customer is selling, and there is another party. And they wanted to route this 100 million through the banking channel. But they are not showing the document. So we refused that transaction. And after that, we don't know what really happened thereafter because we didn't follow. So you need to be careful when the transactions are in place. Sometimes you may be that you have to achieve your target, right? You are just short of 50 million, 100 million on your savings target, right? Therefore, what you do is you get this money and you deposit. And also there is another, I'm talking about the practical concerns that I know. Sometimes there can be a person might come, a new customer. He will come and say, look here, I want a loan. I'm going to buy an apartment, right? Apartment is 50 million. I just want 5 million. I'm short of 5 million. I have 45 million in my account. Or I have 45 million simply. So the bank manager or the branch manager is happy. He is going to lend against lend 5 million against a 50 million property. Just 10%, right? And also it's a good 5 million is not a small amount. So then the bank manager will get the approval. And this customer might say, look here, I want, I have 45 million. I will deposit that in the bank and I will keep this for 2 months because I want the loan in 2 months time. And at that time, I will obtain a pay order from the bank. So then he slowly he bring this black money 45 million into his current account. You're also happy because this customer is depositing 40 million in the current account, right? So no cost at all, no. It's good for your CASA as well. So after 2 months, he will come. Now the money is in your account, his account in your bank. You will issue a pay order for 45 million for that. For loan proceeds, you will issue another 5 million. And the property will get mortgaged. It may be, it's a 10-year property, housing loan or 15-year housing loan. After 3-4 years, what he will do, he will come and say, I have planned to migrate because the current country's condition is not so good. I'm settling this property. Therefore, I want to settle the outstanding. Early settlement. Right? And he will settle all entire outstanding and release the deeds. So you saw how he converted this black money into white money, right? He convinced you for a loan of 5 million for a facility of property worth of 50 million. You were happy. Then he gradually pushed his 45 million into his bank account because he informed that he want to keep this money in the current account. Interest is not a problem. You're happy from your end because it's costless. There's no cost involved in that. Then gradually he pushed this money, purchased the property, and he settled the loan, and he converted black money into white and through the banking system. And now there is no problem. So be careful. Maybe that you are going behind numbers and targets, but you have to ensure what is his profile. If that person has a profile of that nature, getting 50 million, 45 million, fine. Right? And if that is not the case, you have to be very careful. There was another case. Actually, we had to be happy. The Bank of Ceylon was able to capture that particular transaction. If I'm not mistaken, there was a high-end type of a profile person. He had his residence was in Colombo 7. He was from a rich family, and he was used to get money from another bank. So Bank of Ceylon was able to capture this transaction, and they informed to the relevant authorities, right? And finally, we realized that he had some connections with Shell Gas private chairman or some to that effect. I can't exactly remember the situation, and you all have to be very vigilant on that aspect, because the point is where if you're not vigilant, sometimes these type of transaction, and then particular that gentleman's credit card was from Barclays Bank, so a very high profile character, a Navy commander or someone's son, and residents at Colombo 7 are using a Barclays Bank credit card with a high limit, well-known, one of the prime customers at the bank. So now these people are also involved in this particular process. So when you check the profile, it's in line, the transaction is in line with the profile. So be careful. So checking the profile doesn't mean that you have taken adequate controls. Sometimes this high-end type of profile people are also used, right? So, and also the old accounts. Now you might be having an old account. Sometimes you might think, no, these are customers who have maintained relationship with long time back. This old account sometimes all of a sudden get inactive, or they are not functioning. And then once again, all of a sudden it will get activated, and a lot of transactions will come. So these money launderers use those accounts also to get the advantage out of that, because then you're not suspicious. It's an old account. But if you go through the transactions, this account was not functioning for a certain period, and now all of a sudden it's get activated and a lot of monies are coming. There was another case where they have given a office address at Union Place. So normally when you say you have an office at Union Place, the understanding is that, okay, it's a high-end type of a business or a business entity. But when our officers went and visited that place, it was just you call this pettikade, and they have somehow taken an assessment number, and that is the address they have given, right? So if you feel any suspicious type of transactions, you have to be very careful. And there was another case where uh, the TTs are going for imports of the, what do you call this, raw material for cloth manufacturing. All these TTs are below the thresholds. Now, when above a threshold, it gets reported. So these transactions are below the threshold, right? When the officers visited, there was only 4 machines and they were doing business. So if you vigilantly, if you monitor the transactions of people, you will get to know that they are using this money for money laundering activities. There were so many incidents among the banking sector where they say that they are importing 100 laptops or computers. When the good comes, it's just pieces which cannot be resell or which cannot be sold at all, right? So please make sure that when you are opening LC and what they are getting, you have to be careful, because sometimes you open the LC for a huge amount, right? Then the money will go for that. But when the goods comes, you get certain things which are not useful as well. There was another trend where actually this was told by a high central bank officer. There was one person who was wearing a brilliant, what do you call this, earring, gentleman. And it amounting to millions. So he was wearing that and he has gone to the other country and given that and come. So if you want, you can wear a chain for 100 million, 500 million. Who is going to block? If I'm going through the channel, I can wear anything and go. And from that end, I can leave it and come back. This is illegal money laundering. Black money converting into white money, right? So undial is common in all the entire system, right? If you can't send your money in official way, when the taxes are high, now those who are migrated to other countries, if they want to send their money out, all they are converting their assets into liquid assets, and they have to pay 20% or a huge percentage. I can't remember the exact amount. So then what happens, rather than sending through that process, people might use undial or money law, other methods available, sorry, illegal methods available to send money. So from a regulator's point of view, they should not make such high payment, high taxes. So if the taxes were around 5%, everyone will pay and go. So when the systems are stringent, people will try to route, or people will go for other options for them to send the money, which are illegal. So there are a lot of ways that people are using for illegal money laundering transactions. So be careful from your point of view when you're dealing with a transaction, especially when you're canvassing customers from another bank to this bank, right? So you have canvassed. So then you're compelled to give what he wants. So in such an instance, sometimes they will get the maximum out of that, and you're compelled to do some illegal activities as well in order to maintain the business, because now you have canvassed, right? So there are a lot of money laundering activities are around. Some time back, there was another trend where now group wise people come and open accounts, savings books, right? Savings account. So 5 or 6 people come to the bank and open savings account, and they get the ATM card along with the book, and they deposit 5,000 rupees into that, right? And it was an organized system. Now for an example, I'm the person who is coordinating. For any person who I'm introducing and opening an account, I get 10,000 from each account, right? At the same time, you are also getting 10,000 each. Now, for an example, if I'm opening accounts for all of you, we say 10 are here. Each of you all will get 10,000 each. So your responsibility is to open the account and deposit the 5,000 rupees and get the ATM card. So my responsibility is to find your team and forward to a bank, and I will get 10,000 each. That into 10 is 100,000. So what they did was they used these cards to withdraw money from Middle East. So then all the banks collectively, they took a decision to block all ATM cards when they want to withdraw from that particular region. So then that trend was stopped. Recently, I heard another trend. I can't remember actually what it was. High-end type of transactions, dollar transactions are happening. Maybe due to the current crisis situation, there where people deposit here and they try to withdraw from another country. So since you can't take dollars when you are traveling or when you want to do business, so that's another possible way. Yes, so those are some money laundering, and I just want to inform another point which are not relevant for this. Now I have seen when you come to educational field, so if you all are doing in future a master's or anything, just a message I would say, nothing to do with this. Now there's a trend where people outsource their assignments. Then what happens here? You outsource for normally for 3,000 word document. Sometimes the local parties, they do a good job and they charge 30,000 rupees from you. Okay. They will ensure that you will get through the exam. So you're also happy. They're also getting a fee. Recently, there was a trend. The links have come from Dubai, right? And they charge only 1/3 of that price, just $30. So, and now people were very happy because if you are spending here locally, you have to pay 30,000. But this party is requesting only $30. It's less than 10,000 rupees. So they do your first assignment up to the expectation and you get a good result. So you are happy. Up to that point, your relationship and their relationship is very good. After that, what they do, they demand, they say that if you we did the assignment, if you're not going to give you us $1,000, we are going to inform to the institute, local institute as well as the university. Now there were students who got captured out of this trap, and that particular institute has checked with the foreign university as well, and there were three students who were affected out of that, and they have cancelled their registration. So be careful, right? There is a trend ongoing where these people try to take ransom out of those work what they have done, and finally those we lose all the educational opportunities. So even it can happen in Sri Lankan context. I'm doing a job for 10,000 rupees, and later I can tell you, look here, I did your job, and if you're not going to give me 100,000, I'm going to inform. So what are you going to do? So be careful. All those methods are available in Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan students have received these web links as well. Be careful. Just advise your friends who are doing masters, because normally the master students only do this type of things, outsourcing their assignments. So be careful of that. Okay, any questions? Right, what is money laundering? Money laundering is the process by which large amounts of illegally obtained money from drug trafficking, terrorist activity, or other series of crimes is given the appearance of having originated from a legitimate source. So they are showing that these were legitimate transactions, and they are trying to convert this black money into white money. So drug trafficking money, you can't go and deposit in a bank. Terrorist activity, you can't go and deposit in a bank. Crime, killing a person, you get money, you can't go and deposit in the bank. So converting this money into legal money is all about money laundering. The conversion of transfer of property, knowing that such property is derived from serious crime for the purpose of concealing or distinguishing the illicit origin of the property, of assisting any person who is involved in committing such an offense or offenses to be evade the legal consequence of this action. Now, for an example, if you purchase a property from a money launderer or a drug trafficker, what is your position? You can purchase it knowingly, you can purchase it unknowingly. If you knowingly purchase, do you have the intention of involving this process? Yes, can someone tell me? You know that I'm a money launderer, you purchase my property. Or you don't know that I'm a money launderer, you purchase the property. So are you also a part of that process? Yes, can someone guess at least? You all are not familiar with this money laundering? Yes? You all are not familiar with this money laundering and transactions, or you don't want to show that you all know? Yes? Can someone add?
So unknowingly, you're getting involved with the activity, no?
Yeah, knowingly or unknowingly?
Still, if you're getting involved, you're also like supporting the criminal activity.
Yeah, the point is where the when you come to criminal activities, the in legally we calls mens rea. Your intention is important. You have purchased the property, then along with the action, you have to prove your mental aspect as well. So if you had the intention, if you knew that he is a money launderer and purchasing the property, you will become a part as well. But if you without knowing that he is a money launderer, and if you can't prove the intention part, then you will be free. That is why when you come to criminal offenses, you have to prove beyond reasonable doubts. 100% you have to prove to make that person a criminal. But when you come to civil activities, it's balance of probability. 51% you will win the case. 49% you will lose the case. Right? So when you come to crimes, it's 100%. So that is why the action and the intention of the party is matched in these type of transactions. Right? So then what happens? Most of the cases, you know that so and so has done this, but he is freely available in the system. No charges against him. Because most of the people, they destroy the evidence. Once the evidence is destroyed, you can't prove 100%. So in most of the cases, the intention of the parties, it's very difficult. Right? So that is why the intention is also, it's considered as a criminal liability. Because if I did the transaction without knowing that person is a money launderer or a drug trafficker, then I will be free. But I have to give a justifications for that. So sometimes when you come to cross-examination, they might ask why did you do with him? And also be careful. In certain instances, you see owner migrating, property going at cheap, right? Then when you go and see, yes, it's a 5 million property. They are giving at 4 million. They have purchased this for black money and they are now converting into cash through your bank loan. Vehicle. They have purchased the vehicle and now they are converting into white money through selling to obtaining or selling to you, and you are paying from your vehicle loan. So when you get something too cheaper, be careful. You have to ask the common sense question: why he is selling at this price, right? So if you don't have a reason, maybe that is you're one of your good friends, that's why he is selling at that price. Even your good friend, you have to be careful. How do you know whether he is involved in this money laundering activities? So you have to be very careful in this particular process, because we have seen a lot of activities where people are trying to convert this money in different ways. Why do criminals launder money? To hide wealth. Criminals can hide illegally accumulated wealth to avoid its seizure by authorities. To avoid prosecution, criminals can avoid prosecution by distancing themselves from illegal funds. So they can pay a huge amount and try to move out from this illegal prosecution. Evade taxes. Criminals can evade taxes that would be imposed on earnings from the funds. Now they can earn huge money, but they can't. They're not paying taxes. So then, how are you going to show this money? Now, for an example, X is earning 100 million, but he says my income is 25 million. So he paid taxes for 25 million. Then how are you going to show this 75 million? You can't show that 75 million, right? So that's evade taxes. And as bankers, you have to be a little bit careful. In certain instances, customers come and say, okay, my sole proprietor business check deposit into my sole proprietor's personal account, or my partnership, my wife and I have a partnership, my partnership check 100 million deposit into partner's joint account. So all these are evading taxes, right? You can argue to say, okay, it's the responsibility of the customer to pay taxes, but be careful, you're also supporting him. I have seen certain instances where the LCs are open in the name of third parties, spouses, or some accounts are open in the name of employees, company accounts, just to avoid taxes. So if you're knowing the fact that they are trying to avoid taxes, don't support them, because you are also part and parcel of that particular process. And one fine day, the authorities will try to take action against you as well as your organization also. To obtain legitimacy, criminals can use the laundered funds to build up a business and provide legitimacy of this business. So sometimes this black money, they purchase property, they purchase vehicles, they obtain insurance policies, high insurance policies, monthly 100,000 premium. So if I want, I can get a policy for 1 billion. No restriction. That is the value that I have, right? So as far as if I can pay the insurance premium, no problem. But if I'm going to open a 1 billion policy, the insurance company will be very upset and they will ask a lot of questions. You will have to go medical test and so many other things. And because if something goes wrong, they have to pay 1 billion. Definitely the premium will be very high. But still, if I can afford, I can, no problem. If I have all medical clearance, if I can, they pay the premium. So it's not a problem for from the insurance company's point of view. But this is how people push their black money into white money. Right? So be careful when you're dealing with your customers. Right? What are the consequences? There are severe economic and social consequences of money laundering. Facilitates crime, criminalizes society, distorts economic activities, causes revenue losses. So the impact on money laundering activities are very high. It's a crime, I would say. It's a crime, right? Finally, the people who involved and who are affected will have to face unnecessary problems because of this criminal nature, right? So what is the concern for financial institutions? Financial institutions are affected by money laundering, broken trust. You lose the trust, bad reputation. You saw what happened to HSBC, US, 1.8 billion. So once the reputation is damaged, you can't build that. It's gone. Internal frauds, right? It can be internal frauds as well. And compliance costs, high penalties, high charges. Even Wells Fargo, there were, that's a business, I would say the business canvassing part. 5 million fake accounts were opened. And the company has to pay huge cost for the government to rectify their books, right? Business sustainability, there'll be a problem for business sustainability. People will say, don't go to expand. They are money launderers. Now, especially in Sri Lankan context, people create a lot of stories, right? Don't go to that bank. They have a lot of problems. Without knowing anything, they will say. So please understand, we are in a market condition. It's very tough, and especially a lot of gossip keeps on moving. I can remember with the Golden Key, with the Selinko group, there was a challenge for the Ceylon Bank as well. People started withdrawing. But we as a bank, we straight away, we told, don't take a single cent from Ceylon Bank customers. Don't ever canvas, because it's tomorrow, that happened on that particular day, tomorrow it can happen to us as well. So as a banking sector, unfortunately, some banks, some bankers, they canvas this money to say, don't keep money at this bank. There are problems. So understand this, Ceylon Bank and Golden Key, Selinko Group are two different entities. That is why the regulator was there, right? Luckily, the regulator took the appropriate action, and they stopped that. Even similar thing happened to us as well. Mr. New Javadana was the founder member. When he left in 1990, people, there was a rumor to say that so and so is the key player. Now he is leaving. People started withdrawing. So luckily, nothing happened. Only few people withdraw. That is in 1990. Yes, 1992 or 93. So it's common. It's a common problem. Maybe that you think you are a giant bank. Tomorrow, because of a spread of a rumor, people might start withdrawing. If people start, all your customers start withdrawing your money from any bank, the bank will crash. You can't overcome that. Central bank can't help you. They don't have money to pay all your depositors. Right? So this is the challenge. So my advice is, as a collectively, as a sector, we have to collectively find solutions for this. Because X-Bank is doing, you are not supposed to do money laundering. You have to stop money laundering at X-Bank, accommodating money launderers at X-Bank as well. So don't encourage unethical, illegal practices because the other banks are doing it. Let the others do, but you don't have to do. Otherwise, there has to be a full stop for this. Otherwise, it will continue forever, which no one will be able to find a solution in the long run, right? Corporate business sustainability, because businesses, they are formed for a purpose, and the whole purpose of your business is for your sustainability. Businesses are not formed to close down tomorrow. No, you form the business to make sure that you can stay for now, keep for that business for another 20 years or more than that, even 100 years. So it will help your sustainability, organization sustainability, which will help your sustainability as well. So as employees, you have to make sure that you might be staying for a short period in the organization, but your organization should move for years and years. Because of your action, sometimes it will affect the institution, which will collapse. So you have a responsibility for the long-term sustainability of your company, not your personal gain to get something out of transaction and to say I got this. Corporate social responsibility. As a corporate social responsibility, you have a role where you need to take appropriate action to protect the society, right? People are investing, companies are investing huge money to say that we have done this CSR, we have donated. But if you all are involved in money laundering activities and accommodating money laundering, what is the purpose? Right? If that particular companies are doing a lot of CSR projects, but if their main business is money laundering, what is the purpose? So we have to understand, we have to take a little bit broader and understand the gravity to the society, gravity to the country, gravity to the world. If I'm a drug importer and I will be distributing among the local market as well, maybe that I want to import to a re-export. So I know that the authorities have blocked re-exporting. Since I have invested billions, then what happens? I will somehow try to distribute within the system. Who will be affected? Our children will be affected. So there's a huge burden and huge damage to the society through this money laundering activities. So this is some transactions. 7 years from crisis, 2007 to 2014, 150 billion in bank fines and penalties out of 700 billion in profits generated by US banks, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So they have paid penalties, 150 billion penalties out of their 700 billion profits during 2007 to 2014. Just see the amount, 150 billion into 200 rupees, right? 300, how much? 30,000 billion Sri Lankan rupees. And what is your bank profit? How many billions? So as a percentage, it's around 20% profit. So this is why I always say Sri Lanka is a small country. We can't even compare with US banks. So their turnover is 700 billion US dollars. In rupees, to 14,000, 1.4 billion Sri Lankan rupees. Just see. It's a huge amount. So we are not near on that particular, we can't compare. That's what always, if you are taking a decision to migrate to US, don't compare US and Sri Lanka. We are not near of those countries. Right? But if you're comparing Sri Lanka with Vietnam or Bangladesh, fine. But when you come to those countries, it will be difficult. Unfortunately, nothing to do with Sri Lanka, I would say. Still, it's the best country I can see in the entire world. It's about the leadership problems. We are living for every 5 to 5 years, and finally nothing is happening. Right. Money laundering process, placement, layering, integration. These are the 3 steps that people use for money laundering. This picture shows where placement is your black money, you collect the dirty money and you push it to a bank. That's a placement. It may be getting a housing loan of 5 million for a value property of 50 and pumping this 45 million, depositing that money into the bank. Layering, transform the bank account. So once it comes into the account, I'm transferring to different bank accounts. Wire transfers, offshore bank, loan company, obtaining loans, repaying loans, right? Then through the bank, I'm purchasing assets. So this is the placement, layering, and integration. So simply through a banking channel, I'm depositing and I'm using from account to account, that is layering and integration. While using those money, I will purchase high-end assets. So very simple process. So that is why sometimes the banks, if it is a third-party deposit, if the amount is about 200,000, you a non-customer is depositing, you ask the question, what's this deposit is all about? Now, unfortunately, I have seen sometimes the bank officer says you otana personal කියලා ලියන්න. Purpose, how you got this money, personal. So personal is not the requirement, no? You have to say how you got this money. But the bank officer is requesting the customer you otana personal කියලා ලියන්න. Then they accept the money. If the customer is writing personal transaction, that's fine. But if the bank officer is giving instructions for the customer to write personal and accepting that money, it's not ethical at all. So the problem is where, right, you might accept it on a later date. If something goes wrong, the poor teller will be responsible. So officers have given instructions for him. ඕකන්න කියලා දාන්න ඕක මේ personal කියලා ලියන්න. And sometimes you request information, you say that these are better bank requirements. No? අපිත් ආස නැහැ සර් මේ මොනවා කරන්නද මේ මහ බැංකුවෙන් එවන ප්‍රශ්නනේ. No, don't do that. Whatever said and that is the central bank is your regulator. Without a proper regulation, no entity can survive. Just imagine if the central bank is not there, the way the banks are moving, where we will end. Right? So it's important for you all to understand we need to respect our regulator. They are regulators, right? But at the same time, regulators also must think in that manner and try to have a flexibility over transactions as well. Maybe that you have done something wrong, so what to do? It has happened. If you don't have intention of doing that, if you have not done willfully, yes, it's gone. But in such an instance, I know the regulator can't lean the punishment, or they can say, no, this is the first time that you should not do. But still, there has to be some kind of a flexibility of measurement. If something happens genuinely through a mistake, your way of punishing should be a little bit different from punishing a continuous person. Maybe that the authorities can't introduce that kind of a process. But when you have one measurement for everyone, right, the worst person will get the advantage out of. Now, for an example, for any if you get a non-KYC account, if they say it's 100,000, sometimes people pay this 100,000 and they say, what's the purpose of getting this KYC? I can remember before the Companies Act came, when the companies are not filing their accounts, the penalty is just 1,000 rupees. So what they do, if they want to prepare the financials, it will cost much more higher than 1,000 rupees. They pay the penalty and they don't prepare the financials. Now these government officers, government institution, including the parliamentarians, and they have to file this assets and liabilities on 31st March. If they fail to file assets and liabilities, the penalty is 1,000 rupees. So what they do, without filing, they pay the penalty. Right? So then what happens? The person who is getting the advantage will continuously get the advantage, but the genuine person will be affected out of that. Okay, any questions? Any questions?
Small question.
Yeah, sure.
When you're depositing cash more than 200,000, we take, if we deposited by third party, we take details. Is deposit as details? No? So when you deposit, he writes his ID, national ID number, but we can't check those details. No, he can write whatever he wants. Purpose of that is like.
Yeah, he can write. Even he can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 XV. But that's what I told you. Then when you don't have a unique process, now if these NIC department is online, or if they have a system where you can type the name, a number, go to a system and type the number, and if you can see whether the same person is in front of you, then no problem. But as you said, the same. Now I can remember in certain ATM machines, right? You have to submit your NIC number, but there is no authenticity to check, or there is no mechanism to check whether the NIC number what you have typed is right or wrong. So that's why the common platform should be there. Banks, NIC department, police station, birth department, and the passport department. If you have a common platform, when you type, if you can check whether this is the genuine right person, then there's a control. But unless you have this common platform on digitalization, you will not be able to get the right person. Right? As you said, yes, if I want, I can enter your NIC number and deposit. There's no way of checking because I'm not a customer of your bank, right? So there are practical difficulties. I can fill your details and deposit the money because the bank doesn't know whether I'm so and so. Sometimes you all don't check my NIC number. No, there is no requirement for you to check the NIC number. Most of the transactions, sometimes the PN is bringing the money. So I will fill the form and I will request my assistant or to the PN, go and give this to the bank. So once the information are filled, you are not asking whether I filled or whether the PN has completed the document. You get the money deposit. So there is no mechanism. That's what I told you. To satisfy yourself, you can fill the form, but that is not what we want. We want the real person, and whether to capture whether the real person is doing these transactions or not. But under the current system, there is no mechanism for us to check that. What you told is right. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. So if there is a possibility of we can check the person who is depositing the ID, then we could have done that. But since it is not done, there's purpose is lost. Since I feel.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So if you are too smart, you can request him to give the NIC number, NIC or the NIC. And you can check against that. So once again, the bankers say it's too much work for them, right? And if I really want, if I'm smart, I can include my face and your details and fill the prepare a forged NIC, right? So then you check the NIC, you see my face, but the details belongs to you. Then what are you going to do? What can the bank officer do? So that's what I told you. There has to be an automated system across the country. Wherever you go, once you enter your NIC number, the correct information should come. So all other countries, they have, majority of the Europe countries, they have this system. Once you enter your number, everything is displayed. So until that common platform is there, sometimes in regard to my information, if I maintain an account with X bank, Y bank, Z bank, I can have 3 KYCs. For one bank, I can go and say I'm a banker. Another bank, I can go and say I'm a lawyer. Another bank, I can go and say I'm something else. I'm a businessman. So for A bank, since I'm a banker, my risk will be medium. I will go to Y bank. Since I'm a lawyer, since then lawyers high risk. Z bank, sometimes it's based on the business. They might rank me as a low risk. So same person, you can have 3 different risks and with 3 accounts. So then how are we going to measure? Now, if I want to do a money laundering transaction, I will go to a different bank. Where sometimes I'm to the low risk business bank because they know that I'm doing business. It's low risk. So then no problem. I will not do any transactions through my high risk account because then I'm categorized as a high risk. So I will do little small consultations and bring the money to that account. So this is the problem. You have to have a common platform. That common platform should come from the regulators and the system, right? So these are the decisions that we have to take in a economic perspective, entire country wise, not just trying to strengthen the rules and regulations. Rules will be rules if you can't practically apply those rules. Good to have rules to satisfy the international world, but if you can't practically enforce those rules within the country, what's the purpose of having a set of rules, right? Yes, any other questions?
So this is not a question. It's just knowledge sharing on what I'm doing.
Yeah,
For example, sir, if I'm into mortgage facilities, basically housing loans and stuff. What I
yeah,
do is, sir, when I get an application to see, I don't meet the customer. It's just that I process the applications that are sent to the branches. So
okay,
on my side, to be more vigilant and to be more cautious, what I do is I check the applicant's NIC in the Election Commission website.
okay,
Then, as a precaution, I mean, in the bank there is no hard and fast rule that you have to anyway go through this. But
mm-hmm,
as a practice on the precaution side, I do it, and
mm-hmm,
most of the NIC numbers are legitimate according to that.
mm-hmm,
And there had been certain instances where I have not got the details. So when I inquire from the branch, either the applicant is abroad and he has not registered with the latest the election list.
okay,
So as a practice, I do it. So it's just for your information. I'm just sharing so that I don't know if
okay.
it's important or not. I'm just
Uh,
sharing.
uh, right, that's good actually, to make sure that you are registered. You are a registered member in Sri Lanka. Your name is there, so you get the name of that particular NIC number as well.
Yes, so you get the name
Okay,
and then the EIC number, and then
okay,
where you finally where you are registered in the which electoral district you are finally registered. You get that
okay,
also.
okay. So actually, that's a good control, no? That's, you get a lot of information at least to see whether he
Yes,
is a genuine person or not.
yes, exactly. At least if the ID is legitimate, that's
Yeah,
I suggest that's a good approach.
yeah, that's a good approach. That builds a trust, no? Maybe that he is now not in Colombo, and maybe that he's originally registered in, we'll say, Matara, now he's in Colombo. That's not a problem. At least to see whether this person is existing with the same name, and where you have some, then you can ask the second question to say whether were you there in Matara sometime back. So that's additional information that you are capturing from that. That's a great, actually, that's useful for all of you all. uh, Make sure that you at least, that's a common platform that we have, but hardly banks use this common platform. So it's good for you all to make sure that you're dealing with a legitimate person who is in existence. There may be, as you said, maybe that foreign people, foreign, and that biggest issue is the dead parties NICs are also used. There was a one particular case where uh, daughter has come, and she was carried mother's NIC. So she was around 40. At the age of 40, mother looks the same. So luckily, this officer has seen the ID NIC number was the old one, and according to the NIC, the age should have been 70, right? But the girl who came 40, less than 40 years, but the same picture. So it can be a situation, if you're not consciously checking that information, you look at the person and you see the in the face of the NIC, same person, then you just jot down the information. If you're not vigilantly, if you're not consciously doing that, you will not get the information. This is a old NIC. So be careful. Those things are happening. People are using, customers, they know how to cheat the bankers. Unfortunately, bankers are not so sharp than the customers. So that's a good method. Thank you, Amir, for sharing that information. That's a very useful
Welcome, sir.
information. It's a very useful information for everyone. Okay. What are the other methods that you check, follow in your day-to-day activities?
Uh, Pretty much, I would say that's the only thing. So that's additional.
Yeah.
That's
But
something I learned from other bankers. That is only the only thing that I believe that additionally I follow.
yeah. What about the other banks? Others who are
Other than I'm not
not
sure whether
not
they
that.
are doing it or not.
No, yeah, I'm asking from the others. Devin,
Correct.
Pushpakumara, Nuveni, what are your views? What are the practices that you adapt to ensure that it's the same person? Yes? Anyone who wants to add anything? Sandhya, as a lawyer, how do you ensure that you are the same dealing with the correct person? As lawyers, you know, there are a lot of forged documents, deeds, forged NICs. So be careful, right? And especially those who are into lending. When I'm explaining the documentation side, I told you, when you're executing a mortgage, make sure the person, officer who went for visiting or who did the inspection of the property should be there at the time of signing the documents. So then you will get to know it's the same person, because finally a person might come with a forged identity with the same name. So where you won't be able to track him. So be careful on in such instances. You are in trouble because you are negligence, because you are busy. You have so many other customers. A quick, short action will reflect badly, and finally your organization will have to pay a huge amount. Fine. Anything else? Any questions?
So Amir is checking that checking that election commission website. Election.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Election commission list. Yes. Right. Right. So placement, illegal funds are or assets are first brought into the financial system. The goal is to place the funds into the financial system unnoticed to the physical transport the cash outside the country. So you put it into the account and then push it. Right. Layering a series of financial transactions that resemble legitimate financial transactions. So once the money is deposited into my account, I'm going to transfer to, by using the bank methods, I will transfer into X accounts, Y's account, Z's account, right, to some A's account, B's account. So then those people will purchase, goods by using that money. So be careful then when you're monitoring, you have to see if your customers are regularly transferring money from their accounts to other accounts. Be a little bit vigilant. It may be a money laundering transactions, right? It may be drugs. They're distributing money, transferring money by using your platform. Right now, if you take you as an employee, once you get your salary, there are certain standard payments that will affect from your account, no? There can't be 100 transactions. You might pay your electricity bill, you might pay your telephone bill, you might pay your credit card. So ultimately it will be maximum 10 to 15 transactions monthly, the same old transactions. But if you are transferring for 50 accounts, then they are suspicious, no? So be careful when you're monitoring as the first defense line. Don't wait till the compliance is doing that. You should know your customer. KYC is that. If I'm a customer, you don't have to show that you are checking. But behind the scene, you should be able to check all this information. Have a chat with that customer and try to get the information. When he is comfortable with you, he will tell everything what is required for you. So I'm not asking you to stop transactions with this money launderers. But the central bank says, FIU says continuously do transactions, but be vigilant. And if there's anything further suspicious, inform to the FIU. Right? So it's a matter that you be vigilant and inform. That doesn't mean that you have to stop the account. Right? Integration. Funds are integrated into the economy with a legitimate appearance. So then you purchase assets, you purchase some goods by using that money. So it's a very simple method: depositing, transferring, and purchasing goods. So it's not a complicated method. Any person can do that. So there are current MLCFT legislations. I'm not going to go in detail. I will touch one of 2018. That's the currently applicable one, and some current salient features of that. So any person who engaged directly or indirectly in any transaction in relation to any property which is derived or realized directly or indirectly from any unlawful activity or from the proceeds of unlawful activity, receives, possesses, conceals, disposes of, or bring into Sri Lanka, transfers out of Sri Lanka, or invest in Sri Lanka any property which is derived or realized directly or indirectly from an unlawful activity or from the proceeds of unlawful activity. So the definition covers a huge area. So when you are canvassing foreign money, once again, little bit be careful. Sometimes the money is coming, people are willing to invest in Sri Lanka. If the money is coming through your bank account, you have to be careful. Go for due diligence and ask the basic questions. What is this? What's all about? Who is this third party? How this money is coming? Sometimes when you keep on asking questions, they will disappear. Time to time, business proposals comes to the banks. There's an investor who is willing to bring this number of money, right? He is going to invest in these projects. Sometimes they bring the money. After that, the project is not there. So once you deposit the money into your account, once they take the money, that's it. No project proposal, but they are going to bring money, 300 million, 500 million. Right? So be careful. I know that you all have to canvas business, but that doesn't mean that you have to fall into unnecessary problems. Now, financial transaction, section 2, customer due diligence. Now, customer due diligence, ongoing CDD is important. Right? You should know your customer and you should know their transactions. Based on the transactions of the customer or the profile of the customer, the transaction should match. Now, if it is not matching, either your information is outdated or is doing something different. So you have to be careful. You have to ensure that your customer is doing the right transactions in line with the profile. Hardly sometimes you see these people are performing transaction in line with their profile unless you is a fixed income earner. You get your salary and you are dealing according to your salary. So there is nothing big difference. Then cash transaction reporting, there are certain cash transaction reporting requirements. Any transaction above 1 million should be reported annually to the FIU. So once these transactions goes to the FIU, they inform the Inland Revenue as well. So have you seen when you purchase a property or a vehicle, Inland Revenue will send you the letter to justify the money. So do you all have tax files? Do you maintain tax files? Yes? Any one of you all are maintaining tax files?
No, sir, not yet. I don't think our salaries are coming under the threshold at all.
Okay, below the thresholds, right? But if it is permitted, I don't know whether it's you need to take a consultancy from a tax person. My personal view is that when you have a tax files, right, everything you have to disclose. And also, if you want to go abroad, especially US, they ask whether you have a tax file. So they look at in a different way from a tax paying officer. So they know that you are a taxpayer. Even those who you all want to send us elderly ones, so you want to send your children, sometimes they might ask whether your father is a taxpayer. less problems, right? When you inform the inland revenue, okay, you purchase a land, and the inland revenue will send you a letter to say justify. When you go and inform here, this is my tax file. I have discussed everything in my file. That's it. Matter is closed. Right. So yeah, there are a lot of positive things when you maintain a tax file in the tax department, right? So and also sometimes these cash transactions below the threshold. Now the threshold is 1 million. Sometimes people they transfer 999,000, 995,000. So all these are not get reported because below the threshold. So then the bank must have a process to see which customers are playing below the threshold, and how whether there is a pattern of continuously is doing this, and as a result whether they are playing behind the rule. And suspicious transaction reporting we call STRs. If you feel that there is a suspicious transaction done by a customer, you have a responsibility to inform the FIU. So then thereafter the FIU will ask for further information, and where you need to give this information, and they will conduct an investigation. So within 48 hours you have to inform this information to the once you establish that it's a suspicious transaction, within 48 hours you have to inform to the FIU, right? But that doesn't mean that we have to stop transactions with that party. You need to continuously continue transactions, but you have to have extra monitoring. Because they said not to stop, continue, but you have to have a flag on that customer say he's a STR customer. But when the STR is filed, no one knows, only the compliance officer knows. Even the branch manager doesn't know, right? And because the compliance officer can't inform the branch manager, even the auditors, you are not supposed to inform. It's the law protection. Even the board of directors can't take any action against the compliance officer for filing an STR. Right? So that's the authority given for this compliance authorities. They can't, they are protected by the law. So it's important for the banks to understand this gravity and push it and take appropriate action. So there are certain disclosure requirements under Section 8. These are the important sections from the Financial Transaction Reporting Act. Now, this is the most important set of rules, Customer Due Diligence Rule number 1 of 2016. With this, the risk-based approach was introduced. Now everything is based on the risk of the customer. More higher the risk, more compliance requirement should be there. Less the risk, less compliance requirement will be there, accepted. So along with this, it was a huge document. I can remember at that time I was the head of compliance, group compliance officer at the bank. And it was a tough game for us to push to the system, because there were a lot of new things introduced by this. All the banks got together, compliance officers got together, and it was a huge challenge for all the banks to push this function, these new regulations and rules and regulations to the business, because business was objecting as it changed all requirements. But gradually people realized the importance of this, and we were able to push everything into the system timely, right? Customer risk profiling, risk level according to the customer category, geographical location of business or country, origin of the customer. So geographical location is also measured. Now, if my registered address is in Colombo and if I'm going to do a transaction in Gaul, so there's a different location. So then I have to prove why I have opened the account in Gaul, whereas my information is in Colombo. So then if I say, okay, I'm doing my job at call, no problem. Product, services, transaction, or delivery channels of the customer. You have to monitor the types of delivery channels which I'm using continuously, right? Whether what type of delivery channels used by me, any other information of the customer. So risk profiling, it depends on your profession. Accountants, lawyers are high risk. Money peps are high risk. So they have categorized different. You all have to, within your organization, maybe that you have your own categorization. Please make sure that you need to give priority for those categorization, because finally it's important for you to identify the type of the customer. Conducting CDD, minimum information required, purpose of opening the account, source of funds earning. So there you get the information, how you are getting your money, expected monthly turnover, level of income, expected mode of transactions, expected type of counterparties, joint holders, beneficial owners, right? So these are some basic information you have to get from the customers, and you need to monitor the accounts of these customers, because I know it's not practical for you to monitor each and every customer. At least get hold of the top 10, top 100 customers, or top 50 customers, or 25 customers in your branch, and see how they are monitoring this, how they are doing this, right? And at the same time, your compliance department must have a system to monitor all transactions of the customers above a threshold. Because if you have 300,000 or 3 million customers, they can't monitor everything. But they put thresholds and they see, just give me 1 minute, please. Sorry. Right. So it's not possible for the compliance department to monitor each and every transaction, right? So therefore, you have to make sure that the first defense line support, second defense line, entire bank should work collectively together to make sure that you are in line with the requirements of the authorities. Beneficial owners, customer, not a natural person. This is a requirement. I don't know whether you all are fulfilling this. Natural person, if the customer is a natural person, that's a company, you have to see the beneficial owners. Now, shell companies are companies which are formed. There is no ownership. You can't see the person. That's why shell accounts are not permitted. It's just an account without a purpose. Now, these shell companies are formed in US. Its stock exchange have permitted to collect funds. It's a limited. We call SPSUs, right? What they do is they are formed by permitted by the stock exchange to form a shell company in order to collect funds and go for a merger or acquisition. Once the merger or acquisition is over, the shell company will be cancelled. So there is no shell company thereafter. But in money laundering concept, these shell companies are not permitted. But if why US have permitted, even the Europe has permitted, that's an accepted type of a company. Their purpose is clear. Their purpose is collecting funds for investments, right? So when the company is a natural artificial person, you have to check then who is the owner, natural person of that company, because behind the name board, I can do illegal activity. So in front there is a name ABC Private Limited, but behind the screen I'm there, I'm a money launderer. So as a result, sometimes the rule says if you're opening a company account, you have to check the individuals behind that particular company. Just give me 1 minute. Right. Transaction due diligence, occasional one-off customers, walk-in customers, and third-party customers. Now, if the transactions, if one-off customers are coming to do transactions, in such an instances, you have to get information from them. And normally you're not supposed to encourage one-off customers because they are doing transactions, they are going here and there, and there's no record in any of the institutions. So for the first time, if you're happy, only you can encourage them, but thereafter don't do that. Because they are one-off customers, you don't have proper information because you don't know whether if you're opening an account and if you're getting that information, if you with those information, fine, you can do transaction. But if you're if the account details are not there, and if you are encouraging one-off customers to do transactions, that will be a problem. So understand that's very important for you to know that one-off customers, encouraging one-off customers is not something encouraging. The reason you don't have adequate information with regard to such customers. Right, any questions? Any questions? Hello, any questions? Right, politically exposed persons, we call them as PEPs. Now, before a politically exposed person opens an account, there has to be approval from the management. Earlier, this responsibility was passed to the board, and then regular authorities realized it's not practical for them to push it through this board. Now, when you come to a board, you will have only one board meeting for a month, and you have to wait for a month to open an account, which is not practical, right? Then they pass this responsibility to the management. So what you have to do when a PEP is, they have categorized PEPs based on the involvement, and PEPs are before you open, you have to get the approval from even not only to open the account, any credit transaction, any other transactions, you have to get approval from the management. And finally, monthly wise, you have to inform the board of directors as well, because finally it's the responsibility of the board of directors, but approving authority was given to the management to be more practical. So that's why initially, if they would have given it to the management to say that you are responsible for this, and board of directors, they don't know the business paper, right? And you are just putting it to the board to approve. Finally, you will not get the right information, no? Right? So without knowing who these people are and approving, that's a problem. But finally, if you realize it's not practical, and they pass that responsibility to the management, and make sure there is no covering approval before you give a facility. Further enhancement, everything should go to the management and get approval. Right, sanction list screening, it's an important point.
I have a small question.
Yes.
With
Yes,
regard
please.
to beneficial ownership.
Yeah.
There, according to our bank, we have to get when there are corporate bodies which own company shares, and we should get the details of those people, those companies until it gets less than 10% of that certain entity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is quite difficult actually. So is there any according to I heard that the government going to introduce that such a system that they will at the when they are registering the company they do that one. Is there something like that?
Yeah, so I think you can remember sometime back, we were in the grey listing, right? International money laundering list, we were in the grey listing. So in the grey listing, one reason why we went to grey listing is this is one of the requirement, where they wanted to ensure beneficial ownership, but there was no mechanism according to the country to get this beneficial ownership. Now, in order to do that, the authorities pass that responsibility to the banks. When you're opening an account, you have to get share details who are holding more than 10%. That's the 10% is a substantial shareholding. That's why the companies act, even the companies access 10% is the substantial ownership. But there was an understanding that they are going to amend the Companies Act. But up to now, it has not happened. So according to, if there's an amendment into the Companies Act, what they're trying to do is, if I'm forming a company, I have to give the details of the ownership as well. So it's going to be mandatory for me to include the ownership. Now, for an example, if I'm holding 50% and if my spouse is holding 50%, then I have to fill another separate form in the ROC indicating the shareholding. So this shareholding information will be a public information for you. So rather than getting from the customer, you can go to ROC, or you can now, they are converting everything online, I would say. Now all submissions are online. So I think even on, they might permit online inspection as well. So then you don't have to worry about the company's information. You can go to the site or go to the ROC and get that information. So unfortunately, up to now, it has not happened. What you told is right. It was an agreement which was given to the international world to say, remove us from grey listing. We are going to amend the Companies Act. This happened during the last regime, around 2018-19. But up to now, nothing has happened. So then you were burdened. You had to collect all this information of the customers who is holding more than 10%. So my advice, I know then if I'm going to ask from the customer will not give. You get the annual return. Annually, they have to file the shareholders' details, right? Either you can request that from the customer, or you can get I'm not mistaken, you can apply a copy of form, it's form number 6 from the Register of Companies. So at your cost, you try to get this information. But if it is a listed entity, this ownership is changing. But in case of listed entities, all shareholder details, mainly the top 10 or 20 shareholders details, if I'm not mistaken, it's available in the website. So I know what you're doing is a practical, difficult exercise, but it's a requirement. Yes, Sampath.
Sir, in that case, we can get the person who is having the shareholders details from the first place, but the people, the listed companies having another many subsidiaries where they have some subsidiaries. In that case, that problem occurs. Initially, we can get from that form.
Yeah, it can go for 3-4 layers. No, now for an example, I form a company, right? Second layer, it will be 2 subsidiaries holding 50%. Third layer, these 2 subsidiaries once again held by another company. Then third, fourth layer, then only the individuals will come. So until the individual, you have to go backwards. No option, no choice for you all, right? That's a requirement. So best would be to have a mechanism where this information should be mandated for the companies to give it to the what do you call the register of companies, and through the register of companies you can get. That's what I told you. This is the biggest problem. We don't have common platforms. Now you all are spending time and money for this odd job. This is not your job. These systems should come from the platform. You have to do banking. You're not doing banking, you are doing compliance and all other things. If the KYC is online available in a platform, is this information online in the platform? If the risk platform is available for all the banks, your job is going to be very easy, no? When these platforms are not there, out of your time, 20% of your time is spent on these odd jobs. But still, you can't get the real requirement what the authorities want. You're depending on my information. How do you know whether what I'm giving is right or wrong? I can say, okay, I have a annual return filed in 1918, and I will give today. Ownership is totally changed. But if you have a mechanism to go to the site, register of companies, and download the information, it's real time, no? So we do monitoring, but it's not real time. So that is the biggest issue. Lucky that the authorities are not yet still paying charging high penalties. If the authorities start charging penalties, it's going to be a huge problem. Right? So I 100% I agree with you. Our job has become very difficult because of this unnecessary odd jobs. Right? Anything else? Any questions?
Please, in other case, in case of PEP accounts, why do we take those details, that PEP details, because they may be going for minority activities or something like that?
No. They are influence people. No. Now, for an example, if say the president is opening an account with your bank. So president is a powerful person who can convince your bank, and he will push his personal transactions through your bank. Right? So that's the whole idea. They are connected people. They can influence your bank to do certain transactions. That is why these PEP accounts are monitored.
So usually when these PEP accounts are open, we categorize them separately, no?
Yeah. Depending on it depends. Now there are a politician is a PEP. Under the politicians also there are different people, different position. Government officers are there. Forces officers are there. All these are considered as PEP. But what you have to understand is now these it's not easy for you to categorize. If your organization is having categorizing politicians separate, government agents separate, military officers separate, that's fine, right? But even under military officers, the top rank will have more convincing power, no? So finally you can categorize, but when you're dealing and when you're forming the contract, you have to be a little bit careful, because you have to understand that I'm dealing with a top person while I'm dealing with a low ranker. So the person who have more high authority can influence more. Now, for an example, tomorrow if the army commander comes to your branch and a normal army officer who is also a PEP, your treatment will be different. No, you give high priority service to the army commander, but the lowest rank who is also a PEP, your service will be less. No, it's obvious. So because he's an army commander, sometimes you tend to do certain things beyond your limits. It's natural, it happens because we are respecting him, because he's the army commander. Sometimes he might say, I want to withdraw. Don't worry, sir, we will deliver the money to your bank of home. Right? So he might say, I have money, okay. Don't worry, sir, we will send some officers to your home. That's come naturally, because of the respect of that particular position. But sometimes these people misuse this authority and they will try to do unethical, illegal transactions, which you are in trouble. Right? So Majority of the people are genuine, very straightforward, but that doesn't mean everyone is the same. So that is international, not only in Sri Lankan context, all everywhere, PEPs are under monitoring. So it's a common problem for the entire world, not only for Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan context, the situation is a little bit different. Our PEPs are, especially the political PEPs, are real PEPs. Okay, any questions?
Okay, so thank you.
Interesting, good. Sanction listing is where internationally you get list against this sanction list. You have to screen your customers. So if you found okay, any of these customers are in sanction listing, you have to be a little bit alert on that, and you have to check and see, and you have to ensure that these people, or you have to continuously monitor these transactions and make sure that your people, your team or your customers are not involved in any of these terrorists. Now, for an example, if you type any of the PEPs, let's say any parliamentary, now if you type Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, he is in this sanction list as a politician. That doesn't mean that you don't have, you are blocked to do transactions, right? Any PEP, major top ranking PEPs are there in the sanction lists. So I hope that all of you all have sanction listing. And do you all do a real time, real time when you're opening accounts? Do you all check with this sanction list? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I thought I was sharing the slides. No, I was not sharing. Right. Is it real time or is it you are doing it subsequently? Yeah, it should be real time, right? So you have to have a mechanism, you have to have a system where you, when you are opening an account, you enter the name of that particular party or the NIC number, then you will get to know whether he is in a sanction list. So you can continue transaction. That doesn't mean that you should not open the account, but you have to be careful when you are dealing with this sanction parties. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Right. Thanks. Then comes suspicious transaction, STR.
Sir, one question. In case
Yeah,
of that
sure.
sanction list,
What
we
list?
can, sanction list.
Yeah.
When we search that, we use only the names. No, sometimes it's not complete. We can't find the real person's name. I think when
No,
we search it,
there is a percentage comparison. No. Now, if you, when you type the name, now low international, sometimes they don't have our NIC. It gives a comparison. Now, there may be so much of Ranil Wickremesinghe, but they give the photograph as well. They have the photograph. Dow Jones system, they have the photograph of Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe. So when you, it's matching a percentage above, once you match with the name, percentage above 70 or 80, then you have to be little, you have to consider him as, you have to be, then, with the matching only, you realize that he is the same person. At the same time, you get the photograph as well. So then if you know if you have seen the person, you can match with the photograph as well. Not 100% because it depends on your, the way you write the name also, no? Pereira can be P-E-R-E-R-A or P-E-R-I-E-R-A, Pereira, right? So there can be different, what do you call, the spelling differences as well. That's why they consider it as you match with the name, a percentage match. And with that particular match only, you come to a conclusion to say that these people are PEPs, right? Any other questions? Right, suspicious transactions, as I told you, within 48 hours, you have to inform to the FIU. Once you arrive at to say that it's a suspicious transaction, within 48 hours, you have to inform to the FIU, then your job is over. But from the not FCID, CID, they start the job thereafter. So you will have to give a lot of information, statements, everything with regard to those suspicious transactions, but it's a must, right? So unless you file, then obligation is with you all. Once you file the transaction as an STR, your obligations will be over, but continuously there will be a monitoring process. Yes. Penalty and charges. Sorry, this slide was there previously as well. So remove that particular slide, take this slide. Penalty and charges, section 19 of Financial Transaction Reporting Act, subsection 123A, penalty not exceeding rupees 1 million. Subsection 4, regulatory or disciplinary measures may include. So if any person, if any bank is involved in money laundering transaction, these are the charges. Suspension of institution from carrying on business, cancellation of license or authority granted for carrying on business. So sometimes you lose your license. Sometimes they will suspend your license. Subsection 567, legal actions may be imposed against the institution and all of the officers or employees as deemed necessary by High Court of Western Province in Colombo. If they feel that you have done something help the money laundering transaction, there will be action against you, against the institution and officers. So you may be the officer who supported, who helped, who ignored filing action, filing STR, then the FIU can take you to commercial high court. It's a criminal liability of Colombo. So you can see the gravity of these transactions, right? So please make sure that you need to be a little bit careful on this function, banking functions, because there can be a lot of money laundering activities from the systems without your knowledge. I'm not telling that you are doing it intentionally without your knowledge, because of the competition, right? You have to survive with the competition because of the peer pressure you get from the superiors for you to survive. But don't encourage that, right? Because finally you might lose your job. Once you lose a job, 1 minute please, just 1 minute. Right. So because of the pressure, sometimes you might enter into transactions, finally you are in trouble. So these are some additional readings. If you want, you can refer. Adherence to compliance is the responsibility of all staff. Compliance set the bar without slowing down your jump. We don't want to, or the compliance is not there to slow down your business. Compliance is there to support you, guide you, and to ensure and to avoid reputational damage or a cost, right? Otherwise there will be a reputational damage which will affect the organization. And take compliance as a positive function. Don't consider compliance as a negative function and think that they are damaging you, they are blocking your business. That's not their intention, because they are guiding you, because it's your responsibility as well. So within that particular guidance, you have to ensure, finally you may need to maintain your good reputation of your company. You are living out of your company, right? Your earnings are coming from company. You are happily enjoying your life because of your company. Therefore, please make sure that you should not put your company into danger because of short-term gains, right? I will try to, unfortunately, those video clips what I showed with regard to money laundering, I download long time back. I was using this slide still video clip since 2016. I doubt whether I have the links, but if you go to YouTube and just type money laundering payments done by BNP Paribas, Standard Chartered, and HSBC, you will find either the same video clips or similar ones. The other one is Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo incident in 2016. You will get this video clip and some other video clips as well. So please try to watch those video clips as well, and it will definitely help you to understand the gravity of this business, and further it will help you to avoid any unethical or illegal transactions. So as bankers, we should not involve in unethical or illegal transactions. We should not support customers because the gravity is very high. So now they are publishing the money laundering. I think those are in the website, right? Money laundering penalties in the central bank website, FIU website. They have published the name of the bank and the amount. So it's alarming. There's nothing to be happy. If your competitor has paid a penalty, you have to be much more careful than your competitor who paid a penalty, because once you paid a penalty, you will adjust you will fix everything, right? Maybe that your problem is much more danger than them. Next time when the FIU comes, you will have to, now if your competitor has paid 1 million, and if you don't take precautionary action, sometimes you will have to pay 10 million. So it badly reflects among the industry. So I think finding this solutions for governance, compliance, and risk should be handled collectively by all the banks. It's not easy for one bank to do, right? But we have to collectively work together. And especially I want to thank Amir for sharing that information among everyone, because that's a very useful information even for the others. You check with the voters list and see whether there is an existence of this kind of a person, because today you can see a lot of forged NICs, so many other documents around the system. Okay, finally, are there any questions? Yes.
Sir, is there any plan for the exam date? No, not yet. Can't.
Not yet. Not yet. Institute will have to take the call on that.
Sir, when the theory finishes, when you take it on another, how many months will be there?
I have come to with today's session. I have completed my one. I am not sure about. I will have to check with just check with Menaka how many lessons, because they continuously had all the lessons. So hopefully hope there won't be a fourth wave, right? And all the exams are stuck because of this pandemic situation. And I'm not sure how many lessons left. I will have to check with Menaka. Just give a call to Menaka and check how many lessons are left, because now the mark systems are opening. If you can voluntarily request, I don't know whether it's possible or not from the institute point of view, to have some additional lessons and finish the syllabus as earliest. If they can, they will definitely help you all and to have the exams as much as early as possible. So once the examination is done, it's a matter of marking and releasing the marks. So I'm also not sure how many lessons are left more. Most probably I will check with them and I will see whether but you all have to be volunteer. If they agree to finish the syllabus at earliest, then you will have some additional lessons. I'm not sure whether this is something I'm just imagining. I'm not sure whether they will agree or not. They might have other schedules as well. So just see how you can accommodate that as well. Don't worry about the exam, right? Exams are not difficult. From my point of view, the things that I discuss at the classroom, the practical things will be there in the paper. There'll be only one question from me because my assignment, it's under my control. So there'll be only one question. More focusedly on the practical difficulties of securities. Right? Any other questions?
Sir, from your area, only one question will be there.
Up to the last syllabus, yes. I have to check once again. It will be the same pattern, yes.
This
So
is your last
this
day.
is the last lesson of mine. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, then if there's no questions, we'll stop for today. And still, though the systems have opened, you all have to be careful because you all are frontliners. Majority of you all are frontliners. Follow all the rules and regulations. Take extra precautionary actions, and make sure that you face this difficult situation in a very positive way and overcome this situation and continuously progress on your career. Don't miss any or postpone anything. It's important for you all to progress. When the problem is over, definitely it will be over. I'm not sure whether it's 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, but it will be over, right? At that time you have to be ready, and you should be able to drive as usual. Then if this is the best time for you to start exams and complete, because the lectures are online, right? Then it will be very easy for you to join from home. And after finishing this, it's recommended for you all to even to start a master's from a recognized institution. It depends once again on your plans. If you're migrating to X country or Y country, just see whether there are MBAs at that level. Those countries recognize. If you're planning to go to UK, best would be a UK MBA. No, if you're planning to go New Zealand, or if you're planning to go Canada, just see what are the recognized universities from those countries and select one. So for me, it's the Sri Lankan MBAs are the best, but it depends. Now Sri Lankan MBAs carries for 2 years or 2.5 years with the research, but foreign university MBAs only maximum 1.5 years or less than 2 years. So students, they prefer to go short term courses than long term. So it's your call finally, right? But select from a institute which is recognized world over, and if you have plans of going to another country, that your qualification should be useful for you. Okay, right, then all the best and good luck. Don't worry about the assignment. If you have done justice, I will give you marks. Right, thank you.